Hello, and welcome back to the Geek on My Sleeve channel, where we learn how to human one book at a time. This one was a good one. A lot of great quotes, and yeah. But this week is Geek Out number 132, Shadowcroft Academy for Dungeons, Year 2 by James Hunter and Aaron Michael Ritchey. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed the book. Enjoyed the spin, so to speak, on the dungeon core theme. Um, this is book 2. Spoiler warning ahead over book 1 and book 2 here.
Everything is fair game, so you have been warned. Yeah, for those who haven't seen one of our streams before, James A. Hunter is definitely a huge, well, just like, yeah, one of the
Or
top.
he puts out quite a high volume of content for himself, as well as I, it, there are a lot of people doing collaborations. He keeps popping up with collaborations.
Yeah, I'm going to double check it, but I think he even has his own kind of like publishing group.
That
And
would make sense.
with him being
Easy way
so
to kind of.
pro, like collaborating and everything, it's just amazing to see. Um, yeah, yeah, and he just, I don't know, he's versatile, right? Like this one seems a bit more punny, where Viridian Gate, another one of his lit RPG series, which we've spent so much time in the space. Well, not so much time, but going pretty hard reading a lot of lit RPG books or something with lit RPG elements. And, fortunate to meet a lot of other people and authors in the space. And Viridian Gate series is one of those that just comes up as highly recommended, along with like Awaken Online, The Land, just listed as one of the big series, which we need to go back and finish. Do we have that Geek Out on the books?
I would have to click buttons.
That's all right. But long story short, like, yeah, insta buy author for us, a lot of fun. And I was kind of thinking a bit
Or
about
yeah,
it.
we have both continuing Awaken Online and Viridian Gate.
Yeah, see, there we go. There we go. Um, but yeah, very versatile writer. Love it when the authors can push them out. Mountaindale Press is another one of those. I meant to talk to you about this offline, but the next Completionist Chronicle book has already dropped. And I feel like we just got the last one. So Dakota Kraut's another one that just keeps pushing out the amazing books.
Yeah, plus I
Um,
think he has 3 books in a additional series.
yeah. And while we're just connecting all the dots, Dakota Kraut and James A. Hunter have a series in Dakota Kraut's Divine Dungeon extended universe, right?
Yep, the
Yeah.
Wolfman Warlock series.
Yeah. So now that I've gushed enough about James A. Hunter, and went down the lit RPG rabbit hole in space, this book was a lot of fun. Um, Typically, I like to go back through the whole series before doing a geek out. Full disclosure, I feel like there was just so much I didn't catch in the background, like as we're kind of getting some of the lore and some of the pieces. And it'll be a lot of fun after book 3 comes out to go back and connect all the dots along the way. Um,
Yeah, I felt similar where didn't get through it as many times as I would have liked, and the ending of this book really adds to the readability, and there's still a lot of things that weren't answered, but
mhm.
I the ending was done a little different because it's like it's going to progress because this is year 2 and it's an academy, so it's a 4-year stint, unless you're going for like I guess 4 years is pretty typical. unless you're doing like masters or other degrees or whatnot. So you know it's going to continue, and I guess
Yeah,
it's a lot different than the endings I'm used to because I grew up in the era of tune in next time to see if our heroes will defeat whoever. So a lot of
right,
the ending of
right.
the books have just like such strong. Well, I need to read
Conclusions.
more. Where this
Oh,
one, it was kind of an odd one for me where there aren't more in the series out yet, but due to the ending, I wanted to reread it to see if I could catch some of the subtle nods. But I also
I'm
feel like just a lot of it wasn't expressed or explained throughout it.
or we got breadcrumbs,
Yeah.
and I wanna fully immerse myself in the space and pick up on all the nuances because, like, we learned a good amount about the lore in this book, but I feel like a lot more was insinuated, um, throughout it that I just didn't pick up, um, but in a lot of ways, I could see this series going well beyond the initial school, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's so much potential. So very much potential because like even book one, when we first meet our head of the school, is basically like, "Oh, I've been here for I can't remember the number. It's like 2,000 or whatever of your Uroth years." So like that's just of, and then getting into book two where they talk about the four cardinal dungeons and how
Mhm.
uh, the planet that the school's on was created by the four cardinal dungeons defeating William of the something. Can't remember.
Yeah, we're really bad with names. Something like Shiny Scales or something like that.
But yeah, there's a lot we can do. We could go the traditional, hey, 4 years and we get place and we're protecting a node for the tree. We could go, and I think so the spore ability or the symbiosis is more powerful than we really know.
Mhm.
Sidestep some other series, they have like the truth tellers or whatnot. And then towards the end here, our nemesis, our school, I'm gonna be a bad guy, pretty much has a awakening, so to speak, because he gets to see how difficult Logan has had it,
Mhm.
and it
Walk a
just
mile in
puts
his
things
shoes.
into a different perspective. But with that being said, I don't think you can force a bond on people, but kind of like we killed Melvin, which was sad and
Mhm.
encouraging because the author is not afraid to kill off people, and there was a
Well,
lot of
there's also a lot of fan
possibly.
theory crafting. You could go
Uh,
down that rabbit hole, right? And I don't wanna derail the point you're trying to make, but, we'll do some air quotes with we kill people off, um, because of the whole, like, energy tree dynamics, like
or
even
well,
with our villain that we slay at the end, they're like, well, hopefully that shade or that spirit or whatever is gone, but you never know when they're that powerful. Um,
or yeah, that plus that was just a trickle of his power, and yeah, I guess
mhm.
that's true. It's all layers of dynamic between like
Because we had a
they
random
literally
pastry
died,
come in,
and that's
right?
how they
Like
start. Or what's that?
I might be misremembering it, but like we have a couple like it's Melvin, right? The
Or
my
the pastry
lady,
guy?
yeah, our pastry chef. A lot of reminiscing about him towards the end.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, where his, pastry is the one who, melts Steve as
mhm,
he's taking over, and nobody
mhm.
knows. I guess so this series so far has given me a lot of, like, Harry Potter-esque vibes, but back to, like,
I could see that,
potential, because
but it's part Harry Potter, but also like a bit more My Hero Academia with like the unique power sets and abilities. Um, and
well,
then because they're all different species, right? Where we have our Fungalore, we have our
Or yeah, they're different specializations, but I feel like it's all general, where it's like managing your minions, creating floor bosses,
that's true.
cultivation, and doing
That's
stuff.
true.
So it's kind of all
Because they
general,
are the
and
dungeon
then
cores.
yeah, but
We
yeah,
are in year 1,
there's
year 2.
a lot of potential between Logan being like a truth teller or being able to figure out true facts from people's memories. They could all join up and defend a node. They could go on the attack like that Uwu dungeon or oh, I forget the title of the class. It's like preemptive murder or whatever.
Yeah. They had some interesting classes this year.
Yeah, yeah.
It was nice to
There's
see them each specialize a little bit too, right? We have our crafter, we have our um, dining set expert,
yeah, yeah, and I
our musician.
from book 1 to 2. It's done really well in a weird way, kind of like humanizing monsters, if that makes sense. Where it's like we uh, just our main party of four has such a diverse background. Where Logan, our main guy, was a war veteran who then became a small business owner who's from Earth. Okay, our Minotaur used to be a gnome, but is like 250 years old, but he's also, pretty negative. Our moth used to be a bird woman who, and like they all come from different worlds, so it's
I
pretty,
think she was like a librarian.
yeah, ranged and dynamic. But
Hmm.
they're all kind of square one or whatever for going through the schooling.
They and in a lot of ways they were kind of like the odd ones out compared to some of the more prestigious people that became, dungeon cores, right? The family who have all been dungeon um, cores and everything. So the underdogs, the outcasts, look how far we've come through the power of friendship.
Yeah.
It's tropey, but I appreciate how it's done and the humor that comes through it. Um, but yeah,
Or a lot of it's still checked out. Like the people don't care that a couple dungeon cores have died. Like it's not a big deal because they're trying to save the world, and it's kind of the whole ethics of murder class in the first book, where it's like, well, sometimes you got to do it. On second book here, it's about the preemptive murder thing, where going and taking out strategic points in a town, and you're gonna have to kill some
right,
people in order to, save yourself and save the tree. And same thing
right.
for dungeon versus dungeon, and this, that, and the other.
He does. They both do. I keep saying he. They're co-authors. Um, it does a good job when we kind of talk about like the immersion or the sniff test because like there's just so much excuse me, of a paradigm shift to where, hey, you're getting pulled from Earth. You're now a completely different species in a completely different, realm of existence. The real you died. And there's a planet or a goddess named Velveeta. You know what I mean? Like how they use I think Dungeon Crawler Carl kind of does it similar where like, hey, we do have more similarities and differences because like we've gone through similar cultural events, the Lord of the Rings reference, the Velveeta reference, the Earth feeling more like the backwaters, where he makes a comparison to like Kansas or Tennessee rural, like, is Earth that? The greatest thing we contributed was like the second Thor movie or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah, it allows for the cultural relevancy because it could have been connected once upon a time.
yeah.
And I think the other one, separate series that does it well is Berserker or Berserk.
Mhm, mhm. Yes.
where
Yes.
essentially every myth, lore, legend is real because it's a different realm, and our main guy gets sucked into it. Where this one, a lot of the stuff is real, but in a different aspect, and they just have been separated for a while.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It helps. It helps with the immersion because otherwise, like sometimes you let your mind wander and you lose that. And he does it in a punny way, right? Like his minions, the names, their battle cries, um, oddly specific cultural references. But there's also 250 variations of chess, right?
Yep.
Um, so yeah. While we're bouncing around, combat, how'd you feel about it in this book?
I there wasn't nearly. mm,
There's never enough for you, let's be honest.
It was good because it was expanding on the powers, and I enjoy seeing the power sets develop.
More world
Um,
building.
it was cool to see all the upgrades I got. It was interesting to see the combination of things as they went, and to see our Fungaloid match up with like the undead cat woman thing. Can't remember her name.
Yeah, yeah, and long game, you could see a lot of benefits to that, right? Like, here he was the odd man out. He managed to win over and befriend the Terrible 12. Now, his biggest bully, who was shattering his core at the beginning of book two, they're now he wants to be his best friend. Going to do everything he can. He's going to bring over his group, and that's where I could go down the rabbit hole fan theory because depending on how fast he wants to go and scale, this could get big pretty quick. Have his whole class um, room or mates or whatever like part of the same kind of unit as these other shades and spirits and adventurers kind of place these attacks and go more just yeah.
Or sorry, a
But
sidestep. One or the Brandy Butter or whatever, the guy they face in the fake dungeon who is a core that they had captured or
hmm
whatnot, but still has some of his memories, is an
hmm
oddity.
yeah, yeah, a lot of breadcrumbs and a lot of additional learning of just how this whole tree works, right? It's pretty much like a network to the larger world. um, and we've just got tiny glimpses, and it's done a good job scaling, right? Like we got out a lot more in this book, right? They went
Hmm.
to see other people's dungeons and go on their spiritual awakening that they can take a step and make it halfway across the desert as a mushroom eats magic mushrooms in the wilderness. Um, and delectable edibles that power you up and give you essence. But yeah, I'm excited to see how that continues to scale. I going back to the combat question, I feel it went well. We got little glimpses of stuff, smaller combat scenes throughout the book, and then the ending was yeah, pretty much just got introduced to the dungeon dueling, and we had just our shade who took over the floor boss's body and just
Or yeah,
the
that
different
that's pretty
classmates and the
expansive for
power
the
of
lore,
friendship. Mhm.
where you had the four, or you had the serpent or whatever, who was the initial dungeon, and then you had William of the Scales, who was the first dungeoneer who wanted to cut off a branch of the tree, and he had the 4 cardinal dungeons that were the descendants of the serpent, and they had to come together to fight off William. But we also know the Onyx tortoise, who is in charge of the threshing for the first years, and also does the weird simulacrum dungeon that they run through is the original turtle, but was badly damaged in the fight, which begs the question because we get to see so essentially beginning excerpt we get to see oh a teacher die inside of one of the 4 cardinal dungeons, and it may or may not have opened up a seal for stuff. And then we get to see more die in the other dungeons, and by the final, we're in the last dungeon,
Mm-hmm.
and he's trying to unlock the seal, but essentially there was a crack that allowed a bit of William's essence to leak out, and then it leaked into Marco's dungeon boss. And then it wasn't until close to the end when he actually develops a core and then can be controlled or taken over,
Mm-hmm.
which I think part of the damage oh the tortoise suffers with his mind may have been similar to what Treacle and I can't think of her name, our moth woman suffered when he had the black wispy whatever taken over them and their cores. Because he has something similar to symbiosis, but it's different where he can kind of like push his influence on people, or he is a fungal dungeon, and that's why it's always been pushed down or not. They're not promoting or trying to do it because they know the power.
Right. It's a long game. You start off pretty weak. You have a lot of symbiosis type abilities, um, but you need the power of friendship for people to trust you to do it.
Well, yes, unless he started off similar but took a different path where by inhaling it instead of,
That's true.
possibly coughing to death or whatever, you'll, be taken over. Or I mean, like, these are still nub stats and whatnot we're dealing with, where he's what, B and William was double S.
It's not even their final form.
Yeah, yeah, essentially.
Righto, righto. We could fanboy about this series all night, but you worked hard to get some quotes together that we wanted to talk
Yeah,
about
yeah.
for the
Speaking
Geek
of
Out.
learning how to human, alrighty.
Logan stretched sore muscles, then dropped down on the dirt floor and crossed his legs. He didn't need to cultivate, and yet it wouldn't feel right starting the day without practicing his technique. That was the tyrannical power of habit. Besides,
So on that one, habits are a strong thing. And then Chris Fox, actually, we follow some of his other side content. Excuse me. He goes into more of the like neurological details behind why it is, and yeah, it's just power of habit is a strong thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
he heard Marco's laughter and the clip-clop of his hooves on the stone floor. The crowd momentarily parted, revealing Logan's friends in the corner. Inga Thozetharian sat with Treacle Glimmerhappy at the corner table. There was someone else there, but all eyes were on the satyr as he laughed and danced. Marco had a deep-seated need to be the life of the party, and with his formidable abilities as a dark muse, he could do so with ease. Logan felt his heart swell. It had been so long. They'd all worked the summer away and hadn't spent any time together. Logan had missed their camaraderie like nothing else. One of the best parts of his life, both before the Strange Academy and after he became a mushroom mage, had been that feeling of esprit de corps. It was the feeling you got when friends were family, and family were friends.
And this is another thing that this series does very well. This is kind of like a core concept of the book that sticks throughout it. For the esprit de corps, for family as friends and friends are family, where typically
Hmm.
in a dungeon core setting, you think of a dungeon core doing its stuff, growing, developing. But for this one, it's very diverse in multiple people and bringing other people together, and it does it differently. Another book that does well, it has a solid core, and then like you can see that in every little bit of the writing would be Dungeon Lord. It's a little more dark fantasy, lit
Yeah.
RPG, but it follows the Faustian Gambit. But yeah, for this one, it's the Esprit de Corps. Scrolling.
It really is a fun take on the whole dungeon core concept, which is
Oh yeah,
something I really
because
enjoy about this series.
it takes larger than life monstrous things and makes them pliable because it's skill tree based, but that's not who you are. That's just the pathing you have available to execute your plan.
Yeah.
Sorry. Rockhart was putting me through the ringer. You know how he is. That which does not kill us makes us want to die, because it nearly killed us. And maybe makes us stronger.
So I enjoy that. It's typical or one we've heard that which doesn't kill us makes us stronger, but with a twist. And you can't go wrong with the classics. And it was done with a unique twist.
Yeah.
And then also just bringing it back to lit RPG. Everything's XP, so advancement is advancement.
Just gotta grind it out, get those achievements unlocked.
Was an excellent idea. I'd like to welcome the returning students. You survived. You aren't dead. And so you can do wonderful things. Give yourselves a hand. The hall exploded into shouts and applause. That was Shadowcroft's motto. Don't die, and do wonderful things.
So a couple different points. This is kind of like the secondary theme for like the school, and it sticks true. And then bringing it back to real life, we follow a couple content creators, and one is Gary B or Gary Vaynerchuk, and that's kind of his one of his staple things he always tells people is like, at the beginning of my day, I just you know envision family members or close ones dying, and the fact that they aren't dead just makes me enjoy life and want to succeed even more. Could
The
always be
quote
worse.
Yeah, the quote itself comes across on surface level a bit harsh, right? Like, you know,
I
don't die, but the reality of like, yeah, like pretty much says don't die, and since you're not dead, you have the opportunity to do wonderful things, right? Like every day's a new day, you're here, get her done, don't die. And then they learn the more complicated dungeon rules, like don't stand in the expletive, and listen to your raid leader, cultivate when appropriate. What do you got next?
I know you've been working with Director Prime all summer. It seems you might have leveled. But I want you to know that your little team of socially awkward miscreants here isn't going to knock us out of first place. You still don't seem to know your place, but I'll be more than happy to enlighten you. The fungal idiot didn't stop grinning. Wet climates? Basements? Underneath rotting branches in the swamp? Or do you mean like on pizza, or in your mom's beef stroganoff recipe? The little worm was joking with him, but Shadowcroft wasn't in the mood for humor. No, none of that. You know, Murray, last year, you were a fly, barely worth taking a swipe at. But it seems you've evolved into a rat, a nuisance that needs to be exterminated. You think you're going to kick us out of our top spot, but I'm here to tell you that it's not going to happen. The fungaloid's eyes went from amused to deadly serious. Oh, but it will happen, Shadowcroft, because this isn't about my own personal gain. I have my planet to save, and either you're a part of the solution, or you're a part of the problem. And me? I deal with problems. In seconds.
So, kind couple different directions there, like getting bullied, whatever. I typically default to humor or kill them with kindness as well. But the reality of the matter is, like, if you're gonna push it, then you know you're a problem. Get out of my
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Yeah. Do no harm, take no shit, but kill them with kindness when you can. Now that we've kind of like seen their relationship develop, um, one of the things that's so amazing about books and why I think everybody should read them is just the empathy of seeing something through another person's perspective, right? And these longer stories that focus on the power of friendship and how like even these monsters, have things that are relatable and we could be best of friends. He he's just being competitive in a lot of ways, right? Like it's almost as if he's socially inept and because of all his family drama that we get to learn about has kind of pushed him to seek power, which is
Or
another big
yeah,
theme in this book, right?
product of his environment from his home life,
Right.
and he feels as if it's the same here.
Yeah, but by the end of the book, he goes and through the power of friendship and their bond gets to see life from our fun guy's life and how hard it is for him, and the growth there is exactly what we get through books. But yeah. Before I lose the train of thought, I'm not sure if you grabbed the last couple quotes took within the last hour or two. Another big theme they talk about is power and how I think you might have that quote later, right? Power.
Hmm.
Okay. Great. Carry on.
Or this one's kind of ADD
Their claws
related.
leaked oil onto the ice blade grass. The grease ignited, so with every step they left a trail of burning footprints. Their mouths were full of bright yellow teeth. Their eyes were black holes that put a bad feeling in Logan's gut. Literally pit eyes. Okay, great. Stare too long into the abyss, and the abyss stares into you, before chewing through your skull like a Rottweiler with a Cabbage Patch doll.
So, yeah, just being a space cadet or spacing out into the void or the pits. Occasionally, it bites back, and you find stuff that's been buried deep in your vault that you didn't need. Ba ba ba.
He asked. The Minotaur shrugged. I was just doing some preliminary work for our intermediate crafting class. I have to find a way to make life interesting. Otherwise, I'm crushed by the thought of my own existence. That, and I don't like being bored. Sounds rough, Logan said.
Yep, being crushed by your existence when you're bored. You need to find something to entertain or occupy your time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
I enjoy
I've
all
been
the
thinking a lot
different.
about you, my little mushroom friend.
go ahead.
I was just going to say I enjoy all the different point of views we get in this book, just through his classmates.
This was kind of another theme of the book, where the first one was we're the underdogs. We need to scale and power as quickly as possible, power level. Where book two is
Yeah.
more about not pushing and accepting where things are and just going with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've been thinking about your core, to be more precise. I think perhaps I know what might be going on. Logan held up a hand. It's fine. We can talk about this after class. I really want to get to cultivating. The truth was, Logan seriously doubted Professor Rainsap had any idea of what was going on with Logan's core. But more than that, it was more than a little embarrassing for the professor to bring up Logan's core in front of the other cohorts in the class. Logan didn't mind his friends in the Terrible 12th knowing about his issues, but it was possible that one of the others could leak sensitive information to someone who would use it against Logan. Like, say, Shadowcroft. That wasn't going to stop Moonbow Rainsap, though. You used that red lotus juice last year, I hear. It's powerful stuff, and I've been thinking about the knot you tied. Well, I think you pushed your core too far too fast. That's why you're having problems advancing. You're strong. There's no doubt in anyone's mind about that. But sometimes raw strength is not enough, my friend. You must remember, my friend, cultivation is about patience, timing, and fate. Hard work and discipline will only take you so far, but eventually, as you're seeing, it becomes the will of the universe itself. Either it's going to happen, or it's not. Like being a famous poet. You may well pen 1,000 sonnets, but that doesn't mean you'll wind up as famous as Crowena Pantherfeathers. Don't be a bird brain. Her poems are perfect. Marco winced.
So yeah, you can have all the strength in the world, but some things are out of control, and timing, the right place, right time.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of different things you could pick out of that, but it's also just a good little reminder of the universe works outside of your control. Like, don't burn yourself out hitting your head against the wall, right? Because he kind of plateaued there for a bit in this series, um, which was a nice part of the hero's journey, right? Until he finally got forced in the situation where he could use the new cultivation technique. Um, yeah.
Or you can explore the ruins in the omniscient forest. You, Mr. Murray, I think will want to walk the muddy paths of the eternal swamp. Go where you will. Find what you'll find. But I must warn you, anything you discover here will be potent and possibly life-altering. Sometimes change is welcome and good, and sometimes change destroys forever. May the Tree of Souls guide you all.
Sometimes change is welcome and good, and sometimes change can destroy you forever. Yeah, pretty powerful stuff there, where sometimes it's your choice to make a change and it's not what you wanted, and other times it's not your choice and it can still mess you up,
Yeah.
or it can change for the better.
It was morta apothos, the decay that is the part of life. Sometimes change is forever. Logan knew that from losing parents, losing his war buddies, and losing his leg back when he'd been human. But that didn't mean it was bad. Change was always death. The death of one thing in order to be reborn as another. And the thing tugging him forward felt like rebirth, an ending of something old, so that something new could begin. He tracked through slimy mud and found another fallen log, which crossed another channel.
Or so, yeah, change is the death of one thing for the start of another. And I mean, you could take that in anything from change in relationship status, change in employment, um,
Yeah. Life is
or
change.
yeah, I think of it kind of like oh, in video games, you can only have one helm on, so if you get a new one, it needs to take that slot. Scrolling. Wish I didn't have to scroll back every time. Here you go. Here's the one you want him.
Pink. I'll assume it's pink. In the real world, it's black, just like the inside of my cold, uncaring heart. Inga was leaning back in her chair, her hair and antenna blown backward by the shouting. Professor Xantho grimaced. Why do predatory dungeons exist? Short answer, it's because power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. She planted her hands on her tiny hips.
Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah. I grabbed a quote later on, but that's a big theme throughout this book because our fungi gets offered power in the end, right? Like, hey,
Hmm.
we could team up, we could do our own thing, like come to the dark side. He even got like some free cultivation or whatever out of it, like trying to sweeten the deal, like look what I could do for you. Um, but he bet on his friends and turned down the offer.
Yep, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Shrug. But sometimes when a storm sweeps across the ocean, the waves battle the wind, before both are consumed by the rainbow light of reality. The sun murders the sea bleeds rain, the rain replenishes all life. But then the wind comes to tickle life, and life laughs before the day ends and the eternal darkness begins. Logan squinted at the Naga professor, trying.
So it's a lot to unpack there, but short version is some things are just out of your control, and really puts
True.
into perspective how small and insignificant we really are. Like all of humanity could be wiped off the face of the earth, and the solar system and planets and everything would still go. The sun would still be a sun, and Earth would be overgrown with plants and other flora and fauna. The way of the dinosaur. Like
Yeah,
it might be important to us, and but yeah, we're really just small fish in the sea, so to speak.
perspective. Not even.
Ba, ba, ba.
Only Logan would hear. Steve is such a sad thing. I know you all like him, and Marco says he's funny, but he's not. He's lost, alone, a floor boss without a floor. Being around him is so depressing. Logan wasn't sure where this was going. However, Treacle talking was better than Treacle sulking, so Logan kept quiet. The Minotaur spoke again without looking at Logan. I've always felt this weight on me, for my whole life. I felt it as a gnome tinkering away with my steam-powered taffy machine, and I felt it here, as a dungeon core trying my best to get by and keep my friends safe. It's the weight of life, I suppose. I'm surprised others don't feel it, but I do. Sometimes I like to pretend the weight has made me strong. Other times, I see it as my greatest weakness, a thing that crushes me flat. And yet, I never understood the purpose of it. The Minotaur finally turned his mild eyes to Logan. Perhaps the weight doesn't have a purpose, but we do. Took me a long time to recognize that, but I've had a lot of time to reflect this year. Steve is what I used to be, Logan. A tool without a purpose, a monster without a place. But I know my place now. We stopped Dungeoneers from destroying the Tree of Souls. That is what we are being forged for. This here, he gestured around the office, is the crucible built to refine us. We are improving here, and no matter what happens, we must remember that. We will get through this. We will save the school when others might let chaos rule, because we understand the importance of our purpose. Give someone a purpose, and they can carry any burden. Logan felt.
So there are a lot there, but essentially finding your purpose will rejuvenate you, give you more out of life, as well as kind of aces in their places for someone who's really
Yep.
skilled or proficient at something. Then let them be extraordinary about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just, yeah. Purpose, reason why you do what you do.
Ba, ba, ba. Got two more here. This might have been the one you were talking about.
He thought back to his cousin Connie. She'd grown up poor in the alleys of Aurora, always struggling to pay the rent, always one step ahead of the bill collector, and always just one scheme away from being a millionaire. Her retirement strategy was the lotto, which was a terrible plan, except for the fact that she won at the age of 42. $21 million. She should have been set for life. Yet, as so often happened in situations like that, she burned through the money and was back living in a trailer on the outskirts of Commerce City, worse off than she'd been before, after only 2 years. When you didn't work for power, and money was just another form of power, you didn't know how to use it wisely when you finally got a hold of it. Logan liked to think that wouldn't happen to him, but everyone assumed they would be the exception to the rule.
And I think that's what you're talking about, where William of the Scale is offering him power, and he remembers his relative there. And
Mm-hmm.
essentially, if yeah, you can you need to get the skills and the XP to be able to utilize the tool properly or utilize the power properly and become
Preach.
proficient.
Preach.
And then last one.
And lastly, I'm so glad Steve is gone, Marco. I know you don't want to hear this, but he was so negative. He had no purpose. But us, we have a purpose. We're alive, and so we can do wonderful things. Marco squinted and tilted his head.
Kind of just brings it all back. It's the theme of the school, but you know, had an off day, had a bad time. Life is not playing fair. Well, you're alive and you can continue to do wonderful things. And if you
Yep.
haven't found your purpose, you can still find it.
Yeah.
It's another big Gary B thing where he talks about he didn't really get his own career started until he was in his what 30s, 40s, 40s.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually more and more common, or people just having multiple careers in different chapters in their lives, right?
Yeah.
Your purpose can change along the way.
Or
Um,
I feel like it's always ever evolving, but
it's not even my final form, bro.
yep. But yeah, there were a lot of good quotes, a lot of good character development, a lot of different ways that it happened. Uh, book one, um, our satyr ended up, kind of screwing up, and we needed to bail his bacon out of the fire, and he was trying to do better, so he ended up making the floor boss, but that's what, got taken over, and we had that, foreshadowing at the beginning when they were learning how to make their first dungeon boss, except for he already had his, and she was basically like, yeah, this is exactly what not to do. Please do not do this, but he did it anyway.
Right.
And then you run into the irony when they were going on their little field trip, and it was like, probably should not quote his girlfriend for why we shouldn't be doing that. And then the irony of like, even though you were trying to do the right thing, it ended up turning out wrong. But then to have strong core group of family, friends,
hmm
people around you to pull your bacon out of the fire again and, say, well, you did screw up, but we won, you know?
Through the power of friendship.
Yep. And then, our Minotaur ends up getting his enlightenment through his trip with the spores, which, to each
Hey,
their own. And I have heard
they,
several differing takes on that. Um,
I mean, come on. The main character is a mushroom. You got to have some, trippy experiences happening. We had a couple in this book.
Yep, yep. And then,
But real quick, that also kind of ties into just in a lot of ways, like, yes, it is a classroom, but we have our 200 plus year old gnome um, in a past life, now in a quote classroom setting, right? You have people from all these different universes now getting thrown in here. So the back and forth and the dynamics are a lot of fun.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, in some sense, they're all first year or second year students in here, but they've, our, our one is, essentially was a part of a death cult, and the other one
hmm
comes from a noble family of dungeons who went the I'm going to do it my own way route.
And they
And
don't physically have it anymore, but just like our main character, like we could presume, like they still have 200 plus years or whatever their previous lifespan was of experience to collectively grow off of.
Or yeah,
And
yeah, that's why Shadowcroft or whatever our main baddie was so high in his cultivation because he had cultivated previously or in his other
hmm
life, and it's just
hmm
transported over. Oh, and then our moth woman Inga, maybe.
hmm
Her growth essentially came from being challenged and shattered and reforming, and now she has 4 arms. But that's
Yeah.
not the main point. The main point is sometimes pressure can feel overwhelming, but, seizing the day and getting through it can lead to exponential growth,
hmm
right? And then our
hmm
main fungus, his main character growth was, essentially learning to let go. That you can do all the stuff, have, perfect technique, and be as strong as you want, but sometimes you just need to learn to go with the flow and to let go for his cultivation advancement, as well as it just, it may not be the time for it.
Yep. Well said. Well said.
And then Shadowcroft for, you know, essentially the the toxic family life we all lead.
Hmm,
And
hmm.
how being separated from it at times can be beneficial. Because I am a big fan of intent matters and product of environment. And
Mhm.
that's a classic product of environment situation where now going forward, instead of going back home over the summer, he's going to spend time at the school and not be mired or stew in the toxicity of which is a family dynamic. Um, yeah.
There's a
Uh,
lot of potential for that arc, especially if you think of the whole, like, power corrupts and just what we know of his family's back life.
yep.
Um, yeah, yeah.
Oh, but yeah, I enjoyed. We got to see the other side of a lot of our main people, like the threshing tortoise or whatever. We got to see that he used to be something great, and he's just had a nasty battle that has essentially made
He's
him lose his mind. We got to see the head of the Shadowcroft Academy pretty much be like, "Yes, you figured out my secret, and this is why we're done talking about it." But then for him to come back and be like, "Well, you did, you did good, you know, good thing you
and
did
he
this."
apologized.
Yeah, yeah, and but
Like,
to admit when you're wrong is a big thing.
absolutely. Absolutely. Very well
Oh,
done.
yeah, and there's a lot of things that like are hinted at that are weird that are different. So, in theory, we had our rock guy who died early in the year from his core being shattered when we were doing our floor bosses.
Mhm.
When someone dies, their apostolos goes back to the soul tree or whatever, which is what we're trying to protect. Um, so it's like you're not dead, but you're disembodied, but you're already naturally disembodied because you're a core. I don't know. This is where babies
Yeah.
come from. Uh,
Uh, thought that
but
was
yeah,
historic. It yeah, yeah. Sorry, almost had a completely random rabbit hole moment, but we are approaching the 1 hour mark on this stream, so I won't take us too off course. Um, yeah,
and it
definitely.
was a little sad to see the kitchen gas die. To it like so that's where in this book I enjoyed the advancement of what we do as a dungeon and getting more minions and getting them decked out and seeing instead of just defending against raiders, which they obviously paint the raiders in a very bad light, and
Mhm.
it's only the ones that are up higher who truly understand it, and then they flip it on its head in this one where one of the lead guilds that were messing up all the dungeon cores was actually ran by a dungeon core himself because he wanted to get his old life back and blah 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 yada yada. As well as we get to see I can't remember the name, but the something something Uwu dungeon, which I thoroughly enjoyed that arc
There
because yeah, the dynamics.
I was about to say there was a lot of little nods or pop culture bits or things that I'm like, wait, is that a meme? Like, am I catching the reference here? Like the my lady as he tips his fedora, and the social cringe.
Or I felt
Uh
like that was just part of like the upper higher class, but then it was also the nerdy, socially awkward aspect.
Yeah.
But I love the diversity of our group and how Marco was like, oh, this is a 10 gauge sparkle, and you'd think all sparkles are equal and blah blah blah, and just yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Quick Google search. I think the my lady with the fedora tip is a meme. But you
Uh,
never know with the internet. But yeah, lots of little nods or fedora hat tips throughout this book to where the rereadability between the world building, the little nods, wonder what other Easter eggs are left there.
oh
Because
yeah, oh yeah.
sometimes they even do nods to other series, and it's like, wait, did I catch that? Um,
I guess this is my first experience with Aaron Michael Ritchie, which honestly sounds like a fake name, but
a pen
all
name.
a lot of or yeah, pen names.
Yeah, yeah. Um, we've had a lot of luck and success, and I think that's partially why the space has we're seeing so much more of it. The collaborations, finding new authors to binge.
True,
Because
true.
yeah, yeah, when you listen to audiobooks at 2-3x speed, you can get through them pretty quick. So you need more of that epic dungeon core goodness.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. There's so much potential for this. Like we could find out more lore about the world. The seals could eventually, break, and William could get out. The oh, it could be a Naruto-esque thing where William is a tailed beast,
Mm,
so to speak, and he's trapped, but then he comes out. But then, we Wonder Twin or oh, Justice League it where everybody assembles. We could advance, and they kept talking about Ragnarok being the best movie in the Marvel and most accurate one, and we haven't seen any of that world. And there are just so many different
with our
worlds and
powers
things, and
combined.
yeah,
I I don't know enough about that whole space of
I
like
don't
what is a
either, but
subtle nod and what is quote stealing material. And I think some franchises are more overprotective than others, where it's like, hey,
uh,
you know,
I guess that's true. And in the nerd world,
they did have a
it's
direct
pretty
Disney Plus reference,
it's
like when he's
pretty
pleading with
understanding.
him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, do it. Well, okay, so that was
do it
one of
for the
those
mouse, man.
things
Disney Plus.
that didn't add up for me, but it was done in such a way where our main character was also confused. Um,
Mm,
so follow me here. The William guy is essentially doing a bunch of, you know, Uroth references or Earth references, and our main
yeah.
guy's like, how does he know about this? And in reality, he's been trapped in there for what 2,000 plus years. So how would he know about it? But
Mm.
another oddity is our school is not connected to the tree because all the other
Oh,
that's
that's
like the
right.
unique aspect
Yeah,
of this.
yeah.
But how does that
So,
work?
final
Because the
stand.
only way that works is if the person is strong enough or has ascended high enough to then go and create their own worlds and existences.
Well, we got the
Um,
turtle dude there
yeah, yeah, yeah. But
who
I
used to be a
think it's the serpent went up and ascended higher, or there's more than one tree, or um, they're kind
that
of
would
like
make
wraiths
sense.
just moving through everything, so to speak,
Yeah, yeah,
where it could be you can't directly interact with it, but you can still view it, and because of his vast power, or because of the way the seal was created, it prevented him from directly influencing, but it didn't prevent him from his astral projection or whatever it may be
right,
to
right.
view stuff. And if he's that bored.
Yeah.
Because another oddity that we haven't really talked much about is the mimics are our main person of the school's minions, and
Okay.
they are the ones that recruit people who are at the reaping dungeons. And in our minion class, we just learned about ROI, or not ROI, aura or whatever, where they've got to stay inside your influence. If he's
Mm-hmm.
that freaking strong that he can literally send it out to the very edge of the world tree to a dying branch and have mimics place, like that's some scary peepee
Yeah.
peep right there. Like, how strong is he really? Um, Unless there are some other variabilities, such as they talked about if you leave your minions, and that was part of the thing for going on the attack or going and doing other things, your minions can leave you. So maybe it's like due to their singular purpose or due to the will or due to
Mm,
cultivating them in his garden for so long, they know what they need to do and they're not going to leave him. So maybe it's not an influence thing, but
right.
yeah, there's a lot of like, I need to know more. So if you get on that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, we also have the other fungaloid that we learned about from book one, who went on to protect a node and be successful, um, which we haven't met with. But the whatever person of Uwu with yeah, kill it with cute and fluffy,
Mm-hmm.
knew about fungaloids. And
Yeah.
then also William knew about fungaloids. So
The doors
it
open for a lot more potential and lore behind the fungaloids, right? Like we really don't know a whole lot about their culture, right? A lot of
well,
these other
yeah,
people,
that and the variability between the schools and whatnot, because when
true.
Shadowcroft shows him, hey, here's a list of everything, and that essentially explains it like it's a D&D manual where every creature and blah and yah. And then we also know that some of the um oh, I can't think of the word now. The people who raid the dungeons sometimes die on purpose to become dungeon cores because statistically dungeon cores are stronger than an equal counterpart. And yeah, some
Yeah.
people limit their cores that way they can get putrid rattling and other things. And maybe if you cap out and you can't go any higher as a normie, you can prestige and then get epic
Yes.
legendary roles. I don't know. There's a
Yes.
lot of potential.
Yes.
I'm enjoying the world they've built. I'm enjoying the team group dynamics and how yeah, just the dichotomy.
Really enjoy it. Looking forward to book 3. That's for sure. Um, yeah. So, what do we have coming up next week?
Next week is Apocalypse Gate, book 3, Gearing Up, by Daniel Schickhofen. Uh, Warning: there is explicit material.
Yes.
This one essentially, it kind of reminds me of Bobaverse for the opener or the initial bit where the main character is frozen. They lose their whatever, so someone buys a frozen head, implants him into a game, and now you're on galactic television. But then it gives me kind of like a Hunger Games vibe, because the better you do and the more entertaining you are, you can get rewards, but then it kind of feels like an RTS or real time strategy where you've got to, initially you're just one person running around, but then get your town and you build up your stuff. Um, and it kind of starts off like post apocalypse zombie esque, but then
Hmm.
as the title infers, apocalypse gates. And as if you can see by this image, there's a dark elf or drow or however you want to flavor that. So the apocalypse gates add in fantasy elements. So it's unique in the aspect of you're essentially a human, but you get lit RPG abilities, gear, blah, and then it's slowly ramping up how freaking dangerous and the complexity. Meanwhile, a little bit of adult BDSM esque content, which just it's one of those art styles that is not appreciated enough. Side
Hey,
tangent. Um,
no kink shame here at Geek on My Sleeve. Um, Go ahead.
or side tangent of like the story needs multiple things. Like I enjoy good comic relief, and this is, in my opinion, another version of storytelling. But yeah, so Apocalypse Gate, I have not been through the third one yet, but it is a series that has, I believe, 11 out in it, and I've been enjoying it. It's not my typical cup of tea because I enjoy more stats and more. I guess let's get awesome, where this
Right.
is a little. I guess it's pretty quick on the build up, but it's just
Oh,
different
it
how it goes
scales.
about. Where it's like weirdly sci-fi, but then it's not, and it's kind of normie, but then it's not because then it's also fantasy. I don't know. It's
I
an
would
odd
say it's
genre.
not a lit RPG, right? It's more of a fantasy with sci-fi elements that use lit RPG like gamification components, right? Like leveling up, um,
Yeah, gear
all the
being
different
higher
traditional
level and
MMO type. Yeah, yeah. And it blends it so well. It's a nice take on the space. Um, yeah, and 11's already out. It just goes to show how many different series that we've been enjoying because we started this one a while ago.
yep, yep. Just trying to
Yeah.
make it back into the rotation. Then after that, we have The Perfect Run number 3, which I truly enjoy. The Perfect Run, and yet again, this is the third one, but 2 weeks out. They're shorter books, so you have time to catch up if you so desire. This one does a good job with the ability set. The main guy's ability is his name is Quick Save, and I guess I don't know how much I'd. Yeah, I can say this anyway. So the premise of his ability is essentially Schrodinger's cat, and for those of you who don't know, it's a thought experience for quantum physics, so to speak. But it's where the cat is both alive and dead because you don't know. But by opening the box, you do know, and it is a definitive answer of the cat is alive or the cat is dead. So yeah, it takes that simple or well complicated concept and creates a power set out of it. And yeah, book 3 was done very well. I was surprised by the concept as a whole because it's kind of like Groundhog Day on steroid with remembering things. Um, and book 3 was still completely different and amazing. So that sound accurate?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of similar bit as the Apocalypse Gate. It's not technically lit RPG, which we've been spending a lot of time and space in, but utilizes game-like mechanics, which are a lot of fun, right?
Yeah,
And
it's
just
kind of more My Hero Academia where like everybody gets a power, but not really because it
hmm
was an alchemist that created elixirs that gave people powers, but these powers
hmm
were obtained through a wormhole through sci-fi space and time.
we did do a spoiler warning, right? Like down there at the bottom, sorry, not sorry. Um,
I feel like that's vague enough that you would still like the meat
yes,
and potatoes, or it
there
just
are some,
expresses how excited I am about the series.
and the main character is a lot of fun. I think we compared him to kind of like a Deadpool type vibe, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's yes, very,
Yeah.
very cocky, arrogant,
hmm
aloof, and
hmm
witty. Yeah, yeah, it's
Whatever you do, don't go to Monaco.
yep.
Um, yeah, definitely looking forward to that one.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's gonna wrap it for this time. We're going to pretend that Wednesday is going to play nice, and Wednesday 7 p.m. is going to be our new standing if life doesn't get in the way time. Thank
Eastern.
you for everybody who joined us or is catching us on the replay. Congratulations if you made it this far, and hope to geek out with you here soon. Bye.
Bye.